Welcome to the Deep Dive Lab, where we dive deep into fascinating science stories filled with surprising discoveries, unexpected twists, and thought-provoking ideas. So, um, picture this. You're sitting outside on a beautiful summer evening, just minding your own business, and you feel that unmistakable, maddening itch on your ankle.
Oh, yeah, the worst.
Right. A mosquito just got you.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know, maybe you're out for a hike. You brush past some bushes and get a nasty, stinging scrape from a branch.
Yeah.
What is the very first thing almost all of us do?
Well, we try to ignore it. I mean, we pull out our phones, maybe open up a video, or we just try to strike up a conversation with whoever is around us.
All right.
We basically look for any way to distract ourselves from that uncomfortable sensation.
And it makes total sense, on a psychological level.
Sure.
If you aren't thinking about the itch, it bothers you less.
Yeah.
You suffer just a little bit less in the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're looking at some brand new research today that asks a deeply unsettling question about that exact habit.
It really is unsettling, yeah.
What if this automatic instinct to distract ourselves is, like, secretly making your body's physical reaction to the injury worse?
It's a completely counterintuitive concept, right?
Yeah.
For a long time, it was just assumed that ignoring a minor injury was harmless.
Or even good for you.
Exactly. Maybe even beneficial for your state of mind. But researchers have finally figured out a way to rigorously test this in a lab setting, and the results they found completely upend the traditional advice of, just ignore the pain.
Man.
They've actually uncovered a direct line of communication between where you point your conscious attention and how much your physical tissue actually swells up.
Which, that sounds a little bit like magic at first glance.
It does.
Changing the physical size of a swelling on your arm just by thinking about it, or I guess actively choosing not to think about it, that challenges a lot of basic assumptions.
It really does.
Before we look at what these researchers actually did, we should probably establish why this finding is such a shock to the medical community. Like, what was the standard belief about how our bodies handle a scrape or a bug bite?
Right. So historically, the scientific consensus drew a very hard line between psychology and local biology.
Okay.
We've known for decades that attention changes your perception of pain.
Right, like if you're getting a shot at the doctor's office.
Yeah, and you look away and talk about your weekend.
Right. It hurts less.
Exactly. The shot usually feels less painful. We've mapped the psychology of distraction quite well.
Okay.
But the actual immune response, so the physical swelling, the redness, the rush of white blood cells to the area, that was considered purely reflexive and completely autonomous.
So it's almost like a localized autopilot program
Yes.
that just runs in the background, entirely separate from whatever your conscious mind is doing.
That was the established view. Acute inflammation was thought to unfold entirely independently of your voluntary thoughts. The model was simple, really. A pathogen enters or a physical injury occurs, and your local tissues immediately sound the alarm.
Right.
Immune cells rush in, blood vessels dilate to allow fluid into the tissue, and they do their job of repairing and protecting you regardless of whether you are staring intensely at the wound or watching a movie.
So your brain's conscious attention was seen as just like a spotlight on the event.
Exactly. It could illuminate the pain, but it had no power to direct the immune response itself.
So what broke that model? How did we even get to a place where scientists started questioning that autopilot theory? Because honestly, it seems pretty logical on the surface.
It does. But the shift started with a relatively modern biological framework called allostasis.
Allostasis.
Yeah. So for a long time, biology focused on homeostasis.
Which is just keeping things balanced, right?
Right. The idea that the body reacts to things after they happen to get back to a baseline. You get hot, so you sweat to cool down.
Got it.
Allostasis, on the other hand, proposes that the brain is actually a prediction machine.
Oh, interesting.
It's constantly anticipating the body's needs to maintain stability before things go wrong. For example, when you stand up, your brain predicts that your blood pressure needs to change so you don't pass out.
Right.
And it makes those adjustments proactively.
So it's proactively adjusting your autonomic systems, your endocrine system, and your immune activity.
Exactly. And that modern framework led researchers to look much closer at the immune system's relationship with the nervous system.
Okay, that makes sense.
Recent animal studies started showing things that just didn't fit the old autopilot model at all.
Like what?
Well, researchers found that if they disrupted the sensory nerves carrying pain signals from a wound up to the brain, the immune system at the site of the wound didn't just carry on as normal.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it actually got confused and dysregulated. The inflammation wouldn't resolve properly.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's unpack this for a second. It's kind of like the brain is a thermostat in a house.
I like that. Yeah.
And the sensory nerves are the temperature sensor on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
If you put a heavy blanket over that sensor, which is basically what distraction does by filtering out the pain, the heater, or the immune system in this case, doesn't know the room is already hot.
Exactly.
So it just keeps blasting out of control because the brain is suddenly completely blind to what's happening at the site of the injury.
That is a perfect analogy. The thermostat needs that active sensor to know when to turn the heat off.
Okay.
And this brings us to the wild possibility that researchers wanted to test.
Which is?
Does the psychological withdrawal of attention, like just choosing to look away and engage with something else, physically disrupt the brain's ability to control acute inflammation?
So if you purposefully ignore your body, are you putting a cognitive blanket over that sensor?
Precisely.
Which is such a fascinating premise. And it leads us directly into how a team of scientists decided to, take this out of the realm of animal studies and actually test this theory on live humans.
Right. So we are looking at a landmark paper published in 2026 in the journal Nature Human Behaviour. The research team included Nofer Mizrachi, Menachem Rodham, and Liron Rosenkrantz from Bar-Ilan University and EMEC Medical Center.
Great.
They wanted to see if voluntarily directing attention towards versus away from a bodily sensation could regulate the immediate immune response in real time.
But to pull that off, they obviously couldn't just, wait around for people to get mosquito bites in a lab.
No. They needed to trigger a highly controlled identical immune response in dozens of people.
So what did they do?
So they used a histamine skin prick test on the arm.
Oh, man. For anyone who has ever had an allergy test, this is very familiar.
Oh, yeah.
It's that tiny drop of liquid in a small scratch on the surface of the skin.
Yeah.
It instantly creates this very specific reaction, like an itchy raised bump, which I think scientists call a wheal.
Yes, a wheal.
Surrounded by a red inflamed circle called a flare.
Exactly, a wheal and flare. It is the perfect model system for this kind of question.
Why is that?
Because it produces a localized, highly predictable, acute inflammatory response. The skin on the forearm is densely packed with sensory nerves and immune cells. And crucially, a histamine reaction happens fast.
Oh, right. Like how fast?
It peaks in about 15 to 20 minutes, which means you can measure the entire life cycle of the inflammation in a single lab session.
That's super convenient for an experiment.
It really is. So in their first setup, they took 37 people and gave them this histamine prick.
Okay.
Then, for the next 20 minutes, the participants just looked at a computer screen.
But their attention was split depending on the trial, right?
Right. Half the time, these participants were instructed to focus entirely internally. They stared at a simple cross on the screen, but were told to put all of their mental energy into feeling the sensations on their arm.
So the itch, the burning, tracking the exact location and intensity of the prick.
Exactly. You're really leaning into it. The other half of the time, those exact same people were shown highly engaging, distracting video clips.
Okay.
And they were told to focus entirely on those videos, forgetting about their arm.
So under the old autopilot theory, the physical reaction should be absolutely identical in both conditions.
100% identical. The same exact amount of histamine was applied to the same exact people.
Right.
The immune cells shouldn't care what video is playing or if a video is playing at all.
But the data they got back completely defied that logic.
It really did. When the participants were distracted by the videos, the physical swelling was significantly larger.
Wait, larger? Just from watching a video?
Yes. When they actively focused their attention on the itch, the swelling was about 1.5 times smaller.
That is wild.
And 90% of the participants had a larger inflammatory response when they were distracted. Focusing on the discomfort actually made the physical swelling go down faster.
That's incredible.
By looking at the temporal dynamics, literally measuring the size of the swelling at 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, and 20 minutes, they saw that within just 3 minutes, the physical trajectories of the swelling diverged.
3 minutes. That fast.
Yeah. The group focusing internally saw their swelling peak and then start stabilizing or declining much faster.
Why?
Nearly 90% of the internally focused group showed physical recovery after 20 minutes, compared to only 46% when they were distracted.
Wait, here's where it gets really interesting to me. I'm looking at this setup, and I'm wondering about the variables.
What do you mean?
Well, if they were watching highly engaging video clips, their heart rate is probably changing, right?
Ah,
Like maybe the videos were relaxing or maybe they were suspenseful and stressful. Couldn't this just be a systemic physical change from watching a video rather than where their attention is directed?
that's a very good point.
Because, breathing rates change when we watch media. It seems like watching a video is just a vastly different physiological state than staring at a blank screen with a cross on it.
And that is a critical flaw. The researchers knew they had to rule out the idea that the visual input itself and the emotional reaction to it was causing the systemic change in the swelling.
Oops.
They had to isolate the attention. So they brought in 20 new people,
All right.
and they changed the setup so that everyone looked at the exact same visual input on the screen for the entire 20 minutes.
So they just completely removed the engaging videos.
Entirely. Instead, both groups watched a continuous sequence of weird, abstract, three-dimensional shapes.
Okay, that sounds pretty boring.
Yeah, each shape stayed on the screen for 40 seconds. The visual load was identical for everyone.
Okay, so what was the difference then?
The crucial difference was the instruction they were given.
Ah,
One group was told to use the changing shapes merely as a timing reminder to return their focus back to the itch on their arm.
got it.
The other group was told to mentally evaluate the shapes, to look closely at their lines and structure, and determine if they could plausibly exist in reality.
Oh, kind of like analyzing an optical illusion puzzle.
Exactly.
That balances the cognitive load perfectly.
Yeah.
Everyone is staring at the exact same boring shapes. But one group is quietly searching their arm for physical feelings, and the other group is actively doing a mental puzzle to distract themselves from the itch.
And the physical result was exactly the same.
Really?
Yep. The people who were using internal attention had significantly less swelling, about 1.6 times smaller overall.
That is just so strange.
Once again, 90% of participants had larger immune responses when they were distracted. By standardizing the visual input, they proved it wasn't the relaxation of a video or a change in breathing from watching a movie.
It was purely the direction of the attention itself.
Yes, but this second test revealed a massive twist in the data regarding how the participants actually felt.
Because they were also asking the participants to rate their subjective pain during all of this, right?
Right. They asked them to rate how intensely they felt the sensations on their arm.
The itchiness and the burning.
Exactly. And the people who were focusing internally, the ones who had significantly smaller physical swelling, reported feeling the itch and burning much more strongly than the distracted group.
Oh, wow. So they basically turned up the volume on the psychological pain, but somehow that resulted in turning down the actual physical swelling.
Exactly.
That is such a paradox.
Yeah.
Because we usually operate under the assumption that worse pain equals a worse physical injury.
We do, yeah.
But here, feeling the pain more intensely was directly tied to a better, faster physical recovery.
It goes back to your thermostat analogy from earlier. By focusing intensely on the arm, they turned up the sensitivity of the sensor.
Right.
Because they weren't distracted, the brain received a loud, clear, unfiltered signal about the local inflammation.
And because that signal was so clear, the brain could actually efficiently orchestrate the immune response.
Exactly. It could say, okay, we have an accurate read on this injury, we've got it contained, start shutting the inflammation down.
But when they were distracted by the visual puzzle, the sensor was muffled. The brain didn't get a clear picture of the injury, so the local immune system just kept blindly firing, creating more and more unnecessary swelling.
That is exactly what the data suggests.
Which raises the next obvious mechanical question for me. How is a brain actually communicating with the arm to shut that swelling down?
Right, that's the big question.
Like, is the brain just relying on those sensory nerves in the skin to regulate the local area? Or is there a different pathway?
This left the researchers with a major biological blind spot. They knew attention was shrinking the swelling, but they had no idea if this was just a bottom-up process.
Meaning the sensory nerves send the signal up, and the local tissue handles the rest.
Right, or if the brain has its own top-down superpower to calm inflammation systemically just by paying attention.
Okay, so how do you even test that?
Well, they decided to temporarily turn off the sensory nerves to see what would happen.
Oh, okay.
They took 17 participants and applied a topical numbing cream, lidocaine, to their arms before doing the histamine prick.
It essentially cut the wire on the thermostat sensor.
Exactly. Lidocaine silences the sensory nerves. You still get the histamine reaction. The chemical cascade still happens, and the physical swelling still occurs.
But the brain is no longer receiving the sensory data about the itch or the pain.
Right. Then they asked the participants to focus their attention internally on their arm again, even though it was completely numb.
If the thermostat theory holds up completely, without the sensor, the swelling should just go out of control, right? Because even if they are trying to pay attention, there's no signal to focus on.
And that's exactly what happened in the late stages of the reaction. Without the sensory data, the immune response struggled to recover.
Interesting.
After 15 or 20 minutes, the swelling didn't go down as fast as it did when the nerves were fully awake.
Okay.
So intact sensory feedback is absolutely critical for the resolution phase of the inflammation. The brain requires that clear bottom-up signal from the nerves to know when to pull back the immune cells.
But looking at the data for this numbing experiment, there's a really strange contradiction.
Yes.
Even though the numbed arm didn't recover as perfectly as the awake arm, the swelling on the numbed arm was still significantly smaller than when the participants were completely distracted.
Which was the major breakthrough of the study.
Oh, I see.
It meant the sensory nerves aren't the whole story. Even when the arm was totally numb and sending zero signals to the brain, the mere cognitive act of pointing mental attention toward the arm provided a protective anti-inflammatory effect.
Wait, really? So there had to be a secondary top-down pathway at work. The brain was doing something independent of the nerves in the skin.
Yes.
How does cognitive focus translate into an anti-inflammatory response without using the local nerves? That sounds impossible.
Well, the researchers had hooked the participants up to monitors to track a metric called heart rate variability, or HRV.
Okay.
HRV is a highly reliable indicator of your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your body's rest and digest network, which acts as a central brake pedal for stress and systemic inflammation.
And its main superhighway through the body is the vagus nerve, right?
Exactly. What the data showed was that the moment participants directed their attention inward toward their body, it caused a significant spike in parasympathetic vagal activity.
So just by concentrating on their arm, they engaged this massive central calming network.
Even when the arm was completely numb, just entering the cognitive state of internal attention engaged this top-down vagal brake pedal.
Wow.
The vagus nerve communicates directly with the immune system, telling it to calm down and halt the inflammatory cascade.
Okay, so what they discovered is actually a dual pathway.
Yes.
You have the bottom-up sensory nerves reporting the damage so the brain can measure it, and you have the top-down vagus nerve applying the systemic brakes.
Right, and both of those critical pathways are activated simply by where you point your conscious attention.
So what does this all mean for me? Like, how does this change how we look at everyday life?
Well, it completely reframes how we should view physical sensation. We usually think of pain or an itch or an ache as just an unfortunate experience that we have to endure until it goes away.
Right.
But this research demonstrates that feeling those sensations isn't just an experience. It is a vital biological tool. Your brain uses your conscious perception to actively regulate your immune system.
And if you take away that perception by constantly distracting yourself, you're literally impairing your body's own regulatory machinery.
It implies a profound biological consequence for how we live today, because our entire modern society is built on a foundation of constant distraction.
That's so true. If we get a scrape, we immediately look away. We have screens everywhere.
Right, and in clinical settings, hospitals are increasingly using VR headsets to distract patients from painful procedures, like in burn units or during wound care.
Right. And the intention there is good, obviously. You want to minimize subjective suffering.
Exactly. But we're systematically turning our attention away from our physical bodies.
And if we constantly distract ourselves from every ache, pain, or itch with a phone or a screen, we might be keeping our immune system in a perpetual state of blind overreaction.
We are muffling the sensor, preventing our bodies from efficiently containing and resolving acute inflammation.
Wow. But I guess we do need to be careful not to overstate the bounds of this, right?
Oh, absolutely. The authors of the paper are very clear about the limitations.
You can't just think away a broken bone.
No. Or cure a systemic viral infection with sheer focus. And inflammation itself is highly adaptive. Sometimes your body needs a massive inflammatory response to fight off a dangerous pathogen. The goal of biology isn't to never have inflammation.
Right, but this research provides a really solid biological foundation for why certain emerging therapies might actually be working on a physical level, rather than just a psychological one.
Yes. Think about mind-body therapies like mindfulness meditation or pain reprocessing therapy.
Okay.
These are modalities that train patients to safely engage with their bodily sensations rather than constantly running away from them or panicking about them.
For a long time, I think the medical community assumed these therapies just made people feel better emotionally, like helping them cope with the stress of the pain.
Right. But this paper provides a mechanical framework for why they might physically work to reduce objective inflammatory markers.
Oh, I see.
By leaning into the sensation, you are turning the thermostat sensor back on, giving the brain clear data and engaging that top-down vagal brake pedal.
Bringing this all together, it really redefines the boundary between the mind and the immune system. Like, we tend to think of them as separate entities working in parallel.
Yeah, your thoughts up in your head and your white blood cells down in your arm.
Right. But they are actually a single integrated feedback loop.
Exactly. So let's summarize the key takeaways here. First, voluntarily directing your attention toward an inflamed area actually reduces the physical swelling and speeds up recovery compared to distracting yourself.
Right. And second, this phenomenon works through a dual pathway. The brain needs sensory feedback to know when to turn off the local immune response. But the act of internal attention also independently triggers the vagus nerve to calm everything down.
And third, your subjective experience is biologically consequential. Attention isn't just a passive spotlight shining on what's happening.
It's an active regulatory dial for your immune system.
Exactly.
So next time you're sitting outside and you feel the itch of a mosquito bite, maybe try something different. The instinct will be to grab your phone, scroll through a feed, and try to forget about it.
But don't immediately pull out your phone.
Right. Try just sitting with it. Focus your attention fully on the sensation.
It might feel a little more intense and annoying for a minute or two.
But your body is actually using that exact conscious attention to heal the area faster.
And that leaves us with a much larger question to ponder. We just explored how a mere 20 minutes of focused attention can physically shrink a histamine reaction in a controlled lab setting.
Yeah.
So, what does a lifetime of habitually distracting ourselves from our physical bodies, with screens, with endless entertainment, with constant mental multitasking due to our long-term health and our body's fundamental ability to heal itself?
That is an incredible thought to end on. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us on this deep dive. If you enjoyed unpacking this mystery with us, please make sure to follow and subscribe to the show so you never miss our next deep dive. We'll see you next time.